So, hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about something that I know a lot of people routinely run into, and I know it's not the most interesting topic, but project management is something that routinely, as you become more of, you expand your creative opportunities, whether you're working out with clients or just focusing solely on your work, you're going to want to actually start focusing on sort of, micromanaging all these separate little platforms, micromanaging all these separate little instances of, changes either that you're doing yourself or that other people are requesting of you. So one of the issues that we routinely ran into was that we would always run into situations with clients where we would have issues going back and forth, just all these different email chains, just all these different instances where we'd have to shuffle through tons of different platforms. Not only that, but also from like a business perspective, it routinely just costs us a lot of money to have all these different subscriptions. And as you've probably seen by the past trends of the 10 years, everything now is subscription based. So right now, what we're really looking for is a solution that can sort of consolidate all these things under one roof. Not only that, but even though we found some of them that sort of did this ability, the problem is that almost all of them were sort of, a blank slate for you to create your own instances of, like, you could be anything from a computer repair shop to a mechanic to a bakery, but all the project management solutions were sort of like a do-it-yourself and kind of develop your own workflow. It wasn't until we found Assemble.tv that basically we had found something that was primarily designed for content creators. And the biggest thing that they've really done is sort of focused on consolidating everything under not only one roof like we talked about earlier, but also doing it in a way that's oriented towards content creators. This is like one of the biggest strengths that I see. We've used things like Dropbox, we've used Frame.io, we've used Trello, we've used Monday.com, and almost all of them were just not quite there. So I'm going to go ahead and briefly talk a little bit about Assemble.tv and why I think it's become basically our go-to platform and how it's basically accelerated our project flow, how it's made it so much easier to interact with clients, and how really it's just become our go-to platform for everything we need to see, whether it's changes, revisions, creative collaboration, location scouting, casting, anything that's out there that's directed towards visual, auditory, and photo content creators, even animators, things like that, is basically tailored directly towards Assemble.tv's offerings. So before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and actually switch it over to Nate, and he'll briefly talk about a little bit why Assemble.tv was actually created. So we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Nate Watkin. I am the CEO and founder of Assemble. Super excited to be here with your group today, and thank you again to Alexander for inviting me to join. I'm extremely excited to show you guys Assemble because I come from the same background as you. I was a producer for 8 years, running a production company out of Los Angeles, and I tried just about every single project management platform that there was available to us, and none of them ever seemed to fit. So this really is a classic case of solving our own problem, and it's the reason why we built Assemble. We found that most producers are doing what we were forced to do, which is use 4 or 5 different tools and string them all together to create a collaboration workflow that worked for us. And it was just overkill. We wanted to create one centralized solution for our industry that you can rely on from the start of your project to finish, from pre all the way through post. And that's what we've built with Assemble. In building Assemble, one thing that we've really focused on is taking all these traditional tools such as calendars, task lists, file review, but really looking at them through the eyes of a producer and thinking, how can we take a traditional calendar and make it work better for producers? How can we take a traditional feedback tool and make that work better for producers? So I'm excited for you all to see all of the thoughts and decisions that we've put in this platform, because it's come from not only our own experience, but feedback from hundreds of producers that we've talked to as we've built this product over the last 4 years. So once again, thank you for having me. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback, and I hope to see you soon one day on Assemble. Thanks, guys.
Hey everyone, sorry about the technical issue before. Seems that Facebook wasn't working in our favor. So anyways, I'm basically going to recap a little bit about what we talked about before, which is essentially what Assemble.tv did for us, not only as a business, but also what it did for us as a creative platform. One of the issues that we routinely run into when we're interacting with clients, doing our own internal content creation projects, or even just interacting with other creatives is that, we tend to get to these situations where these projects get more and more complex, the scale starts to increase exponentially, we're just siphoning through all these different platforms to sort of consolidate everything that needs to be done. And the more you as a content creator either starts to expand your content outreach or your offerings, you as a business start to accelerate your project scale or just generally interact with more clients, you're going to find situations where you routinely need to go out and basically, extrapolate the information that they're taking either as non-creatives or as creatives and basically hand that off to either an editor, a motion graphics artist, an animator, anybody who's out there doing post-production or even relaying information for pre-production. And what it ultimately came down to when we had this issue is that we just had so many different platforms. We were trying Frame.io, Google Drive, Dropbox, Trello, Monday.com, and that was just an extreme headache to deal with. Not only because, I don't want to have to tell a client to log into 5 different outlets to actually see what the heck's going on. But for us as a business, it came down to 3 primary things. Number one, almost every single one of these platforms, unfortunately, is just a blank slate. It's not actually tailored towards an individual business. So you'll typically run into scenarios where you have, for instance, a project platform that could be used for a mechanic, a baker, a computer repair shop, a law firm, and you kind of have to, make your own little workflow around these bubbles and then basically translate that to everybody else. And really with something like that, it's not inherently obvious as content creators where things might need to go, what the next steps are, and so on. Number 2, well, we are a business, and unfortunately, everything nowadays is a subscription. If you haven't been paying attention for the past 10 years, one of the things is that it just costs a lot of money to unfortunately manage 3, 4, 5 different extra subscriptions, and some of them might only be utilized to maybe 10% of their full capacity, while others might actually be utilized for 80%, and we're still paying for those same feature sets regardless. And then number 3, it just is an absolute nightmare. I know you've encountered this as a creative, where you've either had to deal with clients who send you 4 or 5 different emails at a time for separate edits at separate times of the day. You have to go through, find different threads. You have to go through different platforms to even find different, notation or editing or even just tracking your own projects is just so hard to do when you have all these different moving pieces that you need to line up correctly. And really what it came down to is that Assemble was designed for creatives in mind. We've been talking to the CEO routinely about some of the features that they're offering, some of the things that are on the roadmap, and sort of how it works with their existing platform. And I gotta say, every interaction with this company we've had has been so great. They've been responsive. They have a great Facebook group. They're accommodating of all the things we've been asking. They just haven't told you, it's in the works when we ask certain questions. And really, the biggest thing is that it's just designed for creatives. That means that everything in here is tailored towards people who make content. So I'm going to briefly cut for a second while we go over to Nate, who has a short message and is the CEO of Assemble.tv, and he's going to tell you a little bit about he's going to tell you a little bit about why this platform was created and how it all came to be. So we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Nate Watkin. I am the CEO and founder of Assemble. Super excited to be here with your group today, and thank you again to Alexander for inviting me to join. I'm extremely excited to show you guys Assemble because I come from the same background as you. I was a producer for 8 years, running a production company out of Los Angeles, and I tried just about every single project management platform that there was available to us, and none of them ever seemed to fit. So this really is a classic case of solving our own problem, and it's the reason why we built Assemble. We found that most producers are doing what we were forced to do, which is use 4 or 5 different tools and string them all together to create a collaboration workflow that worked for us. And it was just overkill. We wanted to create one centralized solution for our industry that you can rely on from the start of your project to finish, from pre all the way through post. And that's what we've built with Assemble. In building Assemble, one thing that we've really focused on is taking all these traditional tools such as calendars, task lists, file review, but really looking at them through the eyes of a producer and thinking, how can we take a traditional calendar and make it work better for producers? How can we take a traditional feedback tool and make that work better for producers? So I'm excited for you all to see all of the thoughts and decisions that we've put in this platform, because it's come from not only our own experience, but feedback from hundreds of producers that we've talked to as we've built this product over the last 4 years. So once again, thank you for having me. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback, and I hope to see you soon one day on Assemble. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. So as you can see, the company ethos has really expanded upon what we also had as creatives and issues with all these existing ones. So now we're going to kind of just jump into the actual, meat and potatoes of it, which is how to use this platform, how to set it up. If you've ever used other project tracking solutions or things like Frame.io or Google Drive, for instance, the way that Assemble basically works is similar to those where you buy an allotment of data and then everything is split into creative phasing. And to reiterate, later down the line, you can have custom phasing, but for now, these phases are basically things like editing, sound effects, location scouting, casting, file downloads themselves, and then just other sort of assets that are sort of sandboxed into their own portions. So we're gonna go over here and actually switch to the computer. And basically, this is what the UI of the initial Assemble signup looks like. You're gonna see all these different projects that are sort of sandboxed themselves, which is another huge feature that I really like, because unlike a lot of other platforms, you can white label your projects and you can also assign permissions on a per team basis. So that also means that you can have, for instance, the client and your editors and your VFX guys and your, camera guys all in different sandbox sections, and they can actually individually see, what comments might need to be seen, what assets might need to be seen, and you can sort of split that just in case you don't want the client to see, maybe some less than entertaining comments that your editor made. So if we go ahead and start a new project, we'll go ahead and just call this like, test project, company name. In this case, we'll use our company name, and then the company logo can actually just be whatever you want it to be. That's another feature of the white label portion. So if, for instance, you have like a real estate client or a marketing client or something that you're doing through a white label funnel, that means you can actually have them as the brand that the client will see. It's pretty nice. So we'll just go ahead and skip that, start a new project. And these are what I was talking about when I was talking about phases. Phases are primarily split based on whatever phase you're actually in your creative portion. So you can do a la carte. Either you can have all of them if you want, for instance, or you can only have a certain amount. Say you're only doing post-production with one client, or say you're doing a complete narrative film shoot from start to finish, all the way from, casting, permitting, location scouting, all the way down to, the very end on this platform. So in this case, I'm just gonna go ahead and grab everything in our test project. And then you can always add custom phases. Say, you wanted, location permits. You're gonna be filming downtown in LA and you wanna cordon off a street and get a bunch of crew on there. You can go ahead and actually just take this, go ahead and say like pre-production. That way the whole team out there can figure out what they wanna do. So we'll go ahead and save that. And as you can see here, not only does it split them by phases, but it splits those phases itself by the section in the production phase. So we'll go ahead and hit next. And this is the portion of Assemble where we actually really found it to be a lot more powerful than other traditional solutions. Because Assemble allows you to sandbox and compartmentalize each one of your client or your crew, cast, whatever, into separate sections, you can go ahead and just completely granularly control individual portions of the entire production process. So in this case, we're just gonna go ahead and call ourselves test team. I want to go ahead and invite myself. Wow, look at that. Gotta love Chrome autofill. So we're gonna invite myself. There we go. I go ahead and get an invite later that's saying I've been invited to this project, and I'll actually be able to receive every notification, change, and things like that. So once we hit done, this is our test project. This is basically where we can start fresh. If you want to do your calendar, start tasking out events, things like that, it's completely full featured. So we're going to go ahead and go to the calendar first. Go ahead and pick your time zone. So we're on Los Angeles time zone. So from here, you can actually segment everything either into milestones or you can do a per day basis. So if you have, let's say the 20th on-site with client, for shoot. You can go ahead and add notes. Client is amazing. I love them. They will provide all the fruit snacks in the world. So you can go ahead and pick which phase you want of this. So this is probably going to be obviously a shoot. And then you can go ahead and assign it to what team you want. In this case, we only have our test team and our team itself. So real quick, we're actually going to cut back to the main camera just because I want to talk about something briefly. So another thing with Assemble too is I do want to say with Assemble that you don't really need to have everything in this project. Unlike a lot of other project tracking solutions, you really can just a la carte all these phases. I'm just going to go through each one and sort of showcase individually what everybody might encounter. So we're going to go ahead and switch over here back to our laptop. And then for instance, we have our on-site client with the shoot. You can go ahead and set the status if we're waiting feedback. Say the client wants to know his schedule, for instance, or her schedule, and they need to figure out exactly if they can even show up on set. So then you can even share the calendar, sync it to yours, for instance, all these other features. Locking the calendar is another very important feature. For instance, if you have a production coordinator who is handling all of this for you, they can actually get granular permissions to only edit this individual portion, and that way your client doesn't go in and start rescheduling things without telling you. And then you also have another thing where you can sort of bulk drag and drop each one of these. You can migrate these over. You can move them to all these different areas. Say you want a different shoot date. You can also sandwich them down to just see the individual milestones. So for instance, if you have a lot of granular individual portions that are scheduled, but really you just want to see how long the shoot's going to take, how long the editing's going to take, how long casting's going to take, you can always sandwich them down and it'll show you based on the actual individual zones of your project. So we could even say, our shoot date's right here. We'll go ahead and call this the milestone, starting shooting. And that's our, lovely milestone right there. You can actually even hide these phases if you want. And then you can scroll down and you can see everything just sandwiched, all the way separated by the date and time, which is great because sometimes I don't want to see every individual portion of every single shoot ever made and every single time. And then you can also delegate tasks. Tasks, fairly basic. You can assign them to people. I'll assign this one to myself. Due dates tomorrow, filming. Go ahead and create that. And then we can just go ahead and see what's upcoming. All right, we've already gone ahead and started filming. I don't need to worry about that anymore. Then one of the other big things about the main page that I find really intuitive is you can actually do what's called a creative brief. So if you need to onboard individual labor who are coming into the project at a later date or even at the beginning of the date, this is really important if you want people to basically get a complete overview of what your plan is. So basically this determines what your budget is, the creative goal, the deadline, the company background, target audience, key messages, blah, blah, blah. So my budget for this, I'm a bit of a baller. We're just gonna have unlimited money. So I want this to be done by June 5th. I want my objective here to make an amazing film that changes the world. Go ahead, company background. If you're working with another company, for instance, this is really important because it allows you to sort of give an elevator pitch to say your editor who's like, yeah, this company's really big on social change. They really want to showcase how they're being more inclusive. They really want to showcase how they're offering opportunities to underrepresented individuals. Or say you have another company that's just, a really great luxury car company, and they're all about being high-end and sophisticated. So the film should rock the ages. And Sky Feather Studios is that company. Obviously, you want to put a little bit more of, something a bit more descriptive. Target audience, Gen Z. Key messages, plus, you know, we want them to think we are awesome. And then honestly, you can just go through down here. You could pick location, you could pick cast. Inspiration, probably my favorite section. When I'm working with corporate clients, they're visual people. They don't really know how the creative industry works. They want to see other YouTube videos or Vimeo videos out there that showcase what they're all about and what we're trying to go for in terms of theme. Brand guidelines, if you have a brand book, this is really important. This might be something like your typography, color scheme, logo, layout, white spacing, things like that, how it's used. For instance, we have some clients where if you're an app developer, there's very strict guidelines on how the actual app badges should be placed. Or if you are involved in something that's HIPAA related, or if you're involved in something that's medical related, you can also have other things like that that are more legal inside your guidelines. Usage, this is something where you can always say like, I'm only gonna use it for web. We're gonna throw it in the coolest web film festival. And then additional files, whatever you want. Now you get this beautiful creative brief that outlines everything that your project is all about, when it's due. Somebody can instantly look at this. Every single thing, by the way, is granularly controlled in terms of status. So if the client sees this and they love it, approved. They love it, they think it's great. You know what? Change is requested. I don't like Gen Zs, you know, I want to change it to millennials. We're going to orient this towards millennials. So that's basically the creative brief. You can always actually add comments to here even. So, you know, we want to change the budget. We think it's far too low. The squeaky chair. Not only that, but actually they will receive notifications on a per comment basis. So for instance, if I tag somebody in this or I edit this and I at them, you can actually go ahead and say like, hey, you know, you project manager need to focus on the creative brief. Calendar we briefly talked about. There's a couple other features in here that I think are worth highlighting later down the line, but I leave that up to you to creatively, you know, use at your discretion. So basically now we come to the phases, and I'm not gonna go too much into these simply because there's so much to, you know, absorb here, but creative is basically your whiteboard. You know, what do you guys wanna talk about? What do you actually wanna orient? What are some of the things that are aligning with this brand or this creative vision that you have? And this could be anything. This is basically like, if you have ever used Trello, these are basically like the cards. They're just split. And then this can be something where it's sort of like the testing ground. The client can upload a bunch of cool photos that they've seen from another video, for instance. Casting in here is probably one of the most ingenious solutions I've seen. Honestly, we actually use it twofold. It's designed for talent specifically, but you can sort of, you know, align it with actually assigning crew members. So we can add a role here, for instance. We're gonna call this bad guy. So our bad guy, you know, pick our gender, go ahead and put in whatever you want. He's bad. So from there, you can always go ahead and add a photo if you want of this actor. So we'll go ahead and just find, you know, a good photo of myself. So we'll go ahead and find a good photo of me. There I am on Mandy. Wow, look at me, what a camera operator. We save that. And then from there, we can go ahead and assign each one of these users or casting to basically have like, you could do headshots, you could do things that are basically like, you know, whatever you really want. Them of additional roles that they've done. It looks like this file format isn't supported. That's because it's WebP. But anyways, if we had a JPEG here, we can go ahead and let's see. Let's find this lovely banner that we have here. So, obviously, you would want to apply something that's more pertinent to what they're doing. So this could be, you know, Alexander Wackel, done. And then you'll get these actor submissions. So these are basically your board for if a client goes in and they want to see everything related to an individual actor or actress. You know, this could be all the different headshots for them to choose from. This could be all the different instances where you'd see that. So we click on that and these will be all the headshots. Obviously that picture isn't relevant to this, but from there you can go ahead and go down to art Art is always, applicable to whatever you're doing. If you have a prop department, if you have a costuming department, if you have wardrobe, hair and makeup, whatever, and you want to get a particular look, this is where that will live. Location. Location is another thing that I really like about this instance, because you can always do, let's say, Pike Place Market, it's a historical market located in downtown Seattle, and we love the theme. So we're gonna go ahead and find a lovely picture of Pike Place Market on the internet here. Wow, look at that, so beautiful. We're gonna go ahead and screenshot that. And normally you would obviously have a repository existing of all this content beforehand. In this case, we're just going through and kind of picking out what we already can basically show in an example. So another thing to take into account is that when you do have these locations, you can do them two-tiered. So you can have a location that's all of Seattle, and then you can have a location that's all of Pike Place, and then you can have a location that's all of a particular portion of Pike Place. It all depends on how specific you want to get. So in this case, this would be the main entrance. We go ahead and hit done. And now the client can jump in here, see the main entrance of Pike Place Market. But you could also have another location here that might be the, Humbow Place. It could also be the Pierogi Place. It could also be the park. It could also be the totem. It could be really whatever you want. And then you can honestly go a step above that, where say you wanted to shoot in the entirety of a locale of Seattle, down in the historical area. So you could have Pike Place, the waterfront, the big wheel, all of these things under one umbrella. In this case, this is what it would look like. So location permits. And the great thing about these custom phases too is once you do add them, they're completely blank slate. So like I said before, if you want to align your workflow to be location permits, this can take anything. It can be documents, links, text files, Word documents, PDFs, PowerPoints, pitch decks, whatever. You can go ahead and just upload that in there, and everybody can be granularly added to the phase. So like I said before, if you have any of these team members in here, if you click on any of these here, you can micromanage your individual team permissions and actual members in those teams. Since we only have one team, I obviously can't turn myself off or I'll lose access to the entirety of this portion of the project. You do need at least one person attached to it. So if you go to your shoot, this is the thing where it all kind of starts to come together. So let's go ahead and add our first day. We're going to actually need to go back to our location and pretend that we're the client. Oh man, I love that. Looks beautiful. We've approved that. And we're gonna go back to our casting. And you know what? I think I'd make a great bad guy for this particular shoot. I'm gonna approve both of those. So now you can see here that these have actually all been approved. Those check marks mean that everything is ready to go. So you can move on to the next phase in production. We add a first shoot. Our location is gonna be Pike Place Market. Our date's gonna be May 27th. We only have one bad guy for some reason. And we're gonna have our start time. You know what? I want it to be a very annoying shoot. So we're gonna be shooting at 4 a.m. We're gonna have our end time be at 5:30. Client on set, really useful if you are an agency like us or if you're doing things that involve, everybody wants to come on set. They wanna micromanage, they wanna talk to you, they wanna see the cool sets and the cool cameras and all the cool lights. So client time, they're gonna be there 12 a.m. Meal break. We're gonna have a lovely meal break at 2 in the morning. And the address, you know what? We're just gonna call this First Street, First Avenue. You get a lovely Google Maps there. Parking, great addition to have in location, especially in a giant city like ours where parking is for some reason acceptable to pay $30 or $20 for 4 hours. So then once you hit done, you actually get a little pseudo call sheet. Inside of here, you can see the all the things outlined, the location, a Google Maps listing, and all these different things that are outlined within that shoot day one. Not only that, but you can actually add additional shoot times, you can add additional shoot locales into those, and you can sort of add multiple locations, and it will present everything for you, including weather, like a call sheet. And we have actually talked to the CEO of the company. They are actually looking at taking all of this existing information and translating this into a full-featured casting call sheet solution. So right now, this is basically their very beautifully visually way to present it, but it isn't what we'd consider a traditional call sheet. Personally, I like it more because it's obviously in the cloud, and say you need to update information, that doesn't mean the client or whoever's your production coordinator needs to send out a bunch of documents again. Anyways, we can go ahead and go back. You can add more shoot days. You can add a lot more. So then we come out to the edit portion, and this is really where things start to get nice. So we can call this our nateassemble.tv speech. And I'm gonna go ahead and upload that lovely file he had here, talking about his company, why he created it, all that sort of stuff. And really what this comes down to is how much you want to get specific with your clients. If you've ever used something like Frame.io, this can be as simple as a notification funnel for them. So as soon as you upload a file, anybody on that team will either receive a notification that it's been uploaded with an individual email link. They will also be able to either add comments or specific team-based comments. So for instance, if you wanted to segment your editors to be separate from the client, to be separate from the VFX team, you can do so. And the great thing about it is every single one of these editing portions is individually time-stamped. So this, I can't tell you how valuable this is. While other project management solutions have already sort of offered this solution, they don't offer it to the degree that I like, where you have such small amount of control under one umbrella. There's things out there, like if you've ever used other competitors, they do obviously offer timestamp comments, but they don't offer all of the other things. And so, this is something where I find myself time and time again just really enjoying how much of Assemble.tv has to offer, because you can actually dance back and forth between these phases, and it actually prevents your client from also migrating all of those assets outwards. So say for instance you have a proxy cut, it's a really low res 480p export that you've given to your client, and you just want them to give their feedback. Other project management solutions, unfortunately, have just had issues where it's like all or nothing. They can either download the files or they can't. In Assemble, we often just find ourselves not needing those, assets to be that level of control, because we need the client to just understand that we're looking for feedback and not that this is a final cut. So there is a section in Assemble that is completely separate. We're gonna wait for that to upload. So once you actually log in, and you go to your projects, and here we can actually see the project that we're working on right now. You can see how many calendar events, how many tasks, and what the team name is, who the owner is. And if you go down to the post-production phase while we're waiting for that to edit, it's the exact same thing with all of those individual sandbox portions. So your color grading team can be different than your effects team, your sound team can be different, all of those different sections, and they can actually add comments that are timestamped. So say for instance you have one person who's working on the editing of this cut, you can upload your version to the sound portion, and the sound team will only need their 480p cut, add their soundtrack, and then I can look at it and say, you know what, I don't like the mix here, I think the music's too loud, go ahead and edit that. And this gives me the ability to sort of micromanage each one of these little sandboxes, as opposed to opening up one editing page like we did in our other versions of project trackers and seeing everything at once. So these are basically hard stopped depending on what you need. And then I'll kind of just briefly talk about Final. It's pretty boring. It's just the repository. This is just Google Drive, Dropbox, all of these other cloud-based file solutions in Assemble's project manager. So the beauty of this though is you can at least play them individually, and you can also download them individually, but they also accept other file formats like other project repositories and cloud file repositories. So if you just want one big zip file with, say 20 cuts for an app development where you're doing animations, you can do so, or you can upload a feature-length movie. And then let's see. Okay, so our editing portion has uploaded. You'll go ahead and hit done. You need to wait for the video to process just a little bit. Usually takes about 30 seconds to a minute. But you'll see over on here, you have visible to test team. So in our case, this is the only team we've ever created, and they're gonna be the only ones who are able to see these comments in here until I start adding more people into this actual team and assigning roles. Everybody can basically be under one umbrella. And you don't need to utilize that to its fullest extent. What we've actually found talking to the CEO is that there have been instances, and even we do this, where you just have everybody under one umbrella. You just have your team as Skyfeather Studios, and we invite the client to that team. We invite all of our editors under that team. That way, everybody has the same permissions. Everybody can see the same assets. Everything just looks the same for everybody. If you really don't need that granular permission control. So now with something like this, you can just go ahead and scrub through and say like, you know what? Love that hat. Can we sharpen it up in post? Publish. Easy. Now I know exactly where they're talking about, exactly when they're talking about, and you can always do a little bit more. You can always check it to make sure that the client has been informed that they know that I've seen this comment. You can edit it. You can also @ people. So in this case, I can only @ myself. So if you have another person who specifically wants to see this, and actually this is a really good callback to when I said that if anybody's under the same umbrella, if all those people are under the same umbrella, you can actually @ people from individual teams, but those people that you tag also need to be a part of this same repository. So anyways, basically what that means is if everybody's who's under this wing and you start tagging people, this allows you to say, hey, I want, John Doe over here to be working on this portion, and I want Mary Sue over here to be working on this portion. And then you can always, add whatever you think is necessary. If you want emojis, feel free to add some emojis in there. It's always nice to get some visual conveying in there. So go ahead and hit accept. Our comment's there. It's timestamped. And one thing I really like is I can sort by oldest, newest, and time code. Because more often than not, I actually get clients who will watch a video multiple times and they will cycle back through the same actual region of the video. And unfortunately, we'll run into instances where they say, I saw something in the first 10 seconds of the video I want to change, so I've gone ahead and changed that. And then they'll go all the way through, change, something at 3 minutes, and then watch it a second time. And it prioritizes each one by oldest to newest. If you do it by time code, I can see each one of those laid out in the order of the video, regardless of how they actually commented it, which is so much more intuitive. And if you really, really don't have a client who's just not tech savvy, or they don't want to make an account, or they're really only going to be seeing the review and they're just going to be like, send it off to our social media channel or send it off to the film festival, you can always invite collaborators to the file individually. You can also share a private review link. And you can also add password protection, which is great for security, or sharing it as a presentation. And what that means is if I share this and I generate a link, this link here that I either share through my channels or I email somebody, they will actually be able to comment anonymously on the channel. This is really great if they just want to add like 1 or 2 pieces of information, but you can also just do a presentation, which will mean that they can't do anything. So I find more often than not, sometimes if I'm dealing with a client, for instance, or other creatives who just really don't need to be involved in this project to a massive extent, I can just share them with a one-off link. And then, you can always do renaming the file, delete the file, and this over here is actually where your team management is. So the review link here is the public one that you shared earlier, and then normally you'll see other team members here. So for instance, we can actually go ahead and make a new team just to demonstrate it. So we'll go ahead and call this Gold Team, and you'll see that they have restricted access. So that means you need to assign them. If you inherently invite somebody, this allows you to say, hey, I want only these things visible first, as opposed to inviting them and then all of a sudden they have access to everything and I need to remove permissions. So Gold Team, we're gonna go scroll down here to Gold Team, and then we're gonna go ahead and invite Gold Team to our portion here. So you'll see here, they're already a member. This is actually the account that we're using right now for our main assemble usage. So right now, they won't get an invite, but normally you'd see pending here. But that's because we already have an account with assemble.tv. So, but now, if I go into the editing portion, you can actually see here that there's still nothing, and that's because I need to actually invite Gold Team into here. So once I invite Gold Team, I can see here that Skyfeather Studios has now been added, and they will actually be getting their own complete section here. So now this is only visible to one team unless you're the owner. If you are the owner of a project, you can see everything that's underneath the umbrella of each one of these. So you can see here visible to 2 teams, which in this case is our test team and our Gold Team. in here visible only to the test team. So whatever your naming convention is, whoever you're actually compartmentalizing these to, it's really important to actually know that you need to assign individual permissions. So that's essentially the broad overview of Assemble TV and how it works. And one of the biggest things we found, if we're gonna actually go back over to camera one here, and one of the biggest reasons that we found, like I said before, that this project and this tool has been just so intuitive to use is primarily because we just had so many options out there that didn't fit our workflow, because they were all designed for somebody else's workflow. And I know more often than not that you as creatives encounter this. Our workflow is specific. It may not be something as simple as like a CRM where people are doing individual notes, or it may not be simple as a project management solution where people are kind of all over the map, micromanaging these different things. And we run into people all the time, for instance, who don't want to sign up for 10 different accounts. So, we also don't have to micromanage the solutions that are proposed to them, and we also don't have to micromanage when those deliverables go out. So, if they get an email, I don't have to spend the time saying, hey, here's a new cut. Here's a Google Drive link. Please watch it. Please comment back. Please send me an email. As soon as I upload it onto assemble.tv, everything's ready to go. They get an email, they get notified, they can click on it, and they have instant access to it. So, that alone I find is pretty much worth the price of admission. For scheduling, for logistics control, for editing, for post-production, for pre-production, it's just been our go-to platform. And I feel it's worth mentioning, full transparency, we are not sponsored by Assemble.tv. We did this on our own accord. We did this just because we like the platform so much. I think it's great to support these digital marketing platforms, these digital project platforms, these digital, management platforms that just afford us the ability to enhance our workflow and offer the client more of an experience and something that's more tailored. Or when you're working with other creatives, it makes it so much easier to collaborate. And I'd highly recommend the tool set just for the price of admission alone from some of the feature sets that it offers. There really doesn't appear to be anything on the market that offers this degree of comprehensive coverage. And like I said, reach out to support if assemble.tv is something that might interest you, or if you have any questions, or if you have any apprehensions or hesitations, just shoot an email out to their team. We've had such a high degree of success of them getting back to us really fast, really responsive, and just been really accommodating with figuring out when the new features are coming out, when the new things, are going to be basically on the roadmap, because we obviously had questions if we're going to uplift our entire business and transition into one big platform. That involved quite a high degree of migration on our part, and we wanted to make sure that everything was laid out properly. So, if you are interested in assemble.tv, be sure to hit up the description. It should be here in the video. If not, go ahead and check out our Facebook page. We also have a promo code. If you sign up and use the promo code SkyFeather, you'll get your first month free. But, we have bills to pay. We did this on our own accord. We rented this whole space, got the whole crew together, and it really helps us if you sign up with the referral link. It should be in the description. We don't make anything from this, really. We just like to do it because we like to support our fellow creatives, and we want to see them excel at their jobs. Whether they're working with other creatives, clients, businesses, anything out there, there's a lot more tool sets that really should be utilized, and we found that Assemble just is the complete package. But anyways, if you like this video, go ahead and check out our other stuff. We have a YouTube channel. There's a lot more things on there where we talk about production, camera reviews, gear reviews, marketing, how to grow yourself as a content creator. And I know stuff like this isn't really the most interesting, but it's something you're gonna encounter. And not a lot of channels are talking about the bones and the structure of the business aspect, or just collaboration, or just how to make your life easier. Everybody out there wants to talk about LUT packs. Everybody out there wants to talk about sound effects, motion graphics, presets, the cool stuff. But these are the things, these are the tools that make your life easier, make your client's life easier. So go ahead and check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, anything like that. And check out all of our other content if you are interested. Like I said, the assemble.tv link should be in the description below. If it's not, we'll go ahead and have the team add it in there. And if you sign up with the referral link, it really does help us. We are not sponsored at all by assemble.tv.